Imagine what happens if you pay off your house completely and then life throws a curveball. What's your escape plan when your biggest asset becomes a cage? Most of us assume that being mortgage free would feel like the ultimate security, and in many ways it is. But what if, in a really tough moment, that paid off house could sometimes feel more like a locked door than an open escape route? I'm not saying it's bad to pay it off, far from it. But if you're someone who's worked hard to follow the traditional playbook, avoiding bad debt, paying extra when you could, doing everything by the book, you might be surprised to learn how some of those old rules are playing out differently these days. And here's the part almost nobody talks about. The people who are most at risk right now aren't the ones drowning in debt. It's the ones who did everything right and now feel safest. One of the most dangerous places to be is believing you're safe. I know because my older brother was one of them. Quick note before we continue. I'll be using I to tell his story exactly as he lived it in his words and emotions, because first person makes it feel raw, immediate, and way more relatable. He asked me to share it this way, so more people can really connect and avoid the same shock he got. I spent 30 years chasing a lie packaged in a white picket fence and sold to me by the giants of personal finance. I did everything by the book. I worked the corporate grind, I maxed my 401k, and 6 months ago, I finally did it. I sat in my home office, logged into my bank portal, and wrote a check for $50,000. I watched my mortgage balance drop to zero. I thought I was free. I thought I had finally bought my way out of the system. I thought I had achieved the ultimate American milestone of peace of mind. But 3 months later, the economy shifted. The tech sector took a massive hit, and my company restructured my entire department. Suddenly, I was 50 years old with no paycheck, standing in a $500,000 house that I owned free and clear, and I was absolutely terrified. Because in that moment, I realized something that almost cost me everything. Your house isn't an asset in a crisis. It's a concrete vault where your wealth goes to die. I was house rich and cash poor. I had $500,000 of equity in my walls, but I couldn't use a single brick to pay for groceries or keep the lights on. I went to the bank to ask for a line of credit, and they turned me down. Why? Because banks only lend money to people who already have a job. In many crises, banks prioritize current income over home equity. Accessing equity becomes far harder when you actually need it. And the tax man, he didn't care that my house was paid off. He still wanted his property taxes, or he'd take the house anyway. Quick question before we go any further. If your house was paid off today, but you lost your income tomorrow, exactly how many months could you realistically survive on the cash you have in the bank? Don't answer out loud, just look at that number in your head. Standard financial advice tells you that a 6-month emergency fund is enough, but in an economy as volatile as ours, if that number is less than 12 months, you aren't safe. You are just waiting for a crisis you can't afford. If that realization caught you off guard, that is exactly why I'm recording this. I'm Tom. I'm dedicated to doing the hard work, analyzing data to remove emotion from financial decisions. If you want to stop being a victim of outdated financial rules and start building a fortress of actual liquid wealth, hit that subscribe button and join this community. We're moving past the noise and looking at the data. Before we dive in, let's be professional. I am not a financial advisor. This is educational content based on historical market data and systemic financial principles. Your specific situation will dictate your best path. What worked for me might not work for you, but the math behind it is universal. Now, let's look at why you've been walking straight into a trap. We have to talk about why you were lied to. This isn't just bad luck to you, it's a systemic misunderstanding of what safety actually looks like in the 21st century. We are living with 1980s financial maps in a 2026 economy. Let's look at the primary source of this confusion. The dogmatic school of debt is always evil. This philosophy, popularized by gurus like Dave Ramsey, was born in an era that no longer exists. In 1982, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate peaked at over 16%, with some months even hitting 18%. At 16%, debt is a cancer. It's a financial emergency. Back then, paying off your house early was the smartest move you could possibly make. It was a guaranteed 16% return on your money. But today, the world has flipped upside down, yet the advice hasn't updated. According to Freddie Mac and the Federal Reserve, the median home price in the United States is now over $417,000. Meanwhile, millions of you are sitting on what I call golden handcuffs, mortgages with rates between 2.5 and 4% that you locked in during the pandemic. And yet, I see people every day in the comments taking their hard-earned cash that could be earning nearly 5% in an FDIC insured high yield savings account, and they are donating it back to the bank to pay down a 3% loan. Why? Because of a feeling, a psychological phantom called peace of mind. But I'm here to tell you that peace of mind is the most expensive luxury you will ever buy. It's $1 million mistake hidden under the guise of being responsible. Let's look at the reality of the house rich, cash poor syndrome. About 40% of American homeowners own their homes outright. On the surface, they look like the winners, but look closer. Many of these people are retirees who are terrified to turn on the heater in a cold winter because they don't have enough liquid cash to cover the utility bill. They are living in a tomb made of equity. They can't get a home equity line of credit because their income is gone. They are trapped. This is the liquidity trap. E is a mathematical prison that smart, responsible people walk into because they think they've achieved the American dream. I want you to be honest in the comments. Are you sending extra money to your mortgage company right now? And if so, what is your interest rate? Let's see how many of you are sitting on a 3% gold mine and trying to destroy it. Let's talk about how the world actually works. Banks live on the spread. Banks are in the business of arbitrage. They borrow money at a low rate and lend it to you at a higher rate. They live on the difference. If you have a mortgage at 3.5%, and the bank can take that same money and lend it to someone else for a car loan at 8%, they are winning. But here is the secret: you can do the exact same thing to the bank. Right now, you can put money into a high-yield savings account and earn between 4% and 5%. While these rates fluctuate, as long as the rate you earn is higher than the rate you pay on your mortgage, you are winning. If your mortgage is 3%, you are making a profit just by holding on to the bank's money. In certain rate environments, the math favors holding low interest debt. The advantage comes from the interest rate spread, not guarantees. Early payoff can return cheap capital to the bank prematurely. That capital can often earn more elsewhere. You are handing them back cheap capital so they can go lend it out to someone else for double the price. Imagine you have $100,000. Option A, you pay down your mortgage, your monthly payment disappears, but that $100,000 is now gone. It's locked in the drywall. To get it back, you have to sell the house, which costs 6% in commissions, or beg a bank for a loan. Option B, you keep that $100,000 in a diversified index fund. That average includes severe crashes and long recovery periods. Returns vary widely depending on timing and investor behavior. Returns 10% historical, but include taxes. Even if we are conservative and assume a 7% net return after taxes and fees, the math is staggering. In option A, you saved 3% in interest. In option B, you earn 7% in growth. That 4% difference is the spread. Over 30 years. That 4% difference on $100,000 isn't just a few bucks. It is hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is the difference between a comfortable retirement and having to work at 80. The gap grows into the millions over a working lifetime. By paying off your house early, you are paying a peace of mind tax that will eventually bankrupt your future self. I'm asking you, is a temporary feeling worth $1 million? Now, I need to be clear, if your mortgage rate is 7% or 8%, this math changes. At that point, paying down the debt is a guaranteed 7% or 8% return, which is very competitive with the stock market. But for the millions of you with rates under 5%, you are sitting on a gift. Most people think inflation is a disaster, and for your grocery bill, it is. But if you are a debtor with a fixed-rate mortgage, inflation is your best friend. This is the secret that wealthy investors use. When you take out a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, you are locking in your housing cost in today's dollars. If your payment is $20 a month, it will still be $2,000 a month in the year 2050. But what will $2,000 buy you in 2050? Based on historical inflation, it might buy you a nice steak dinner and a tank of gas. By keeping your mortgage, you are paying the bank back with cheaper dollars every single year. The government and the central bank are effectively eroding your debt for you. You are using the system to devalue your liabilities while your assets inflate in value. When you rush to pay off your mortgage, you are doing the bank a massive favor. You are giving them high value, high purchasing power dollars today rather than giving them worthless dollars 30 years from now. Why would you do that? Seriously, pause the video and think about the logic. Why are you so eager to give away your most valuable dollars to a multi-billion-dollar corporation? Traditional education rarely focuses on debt mechanics or liquidity risk. Those topics were less critical in more stable economic periods. It needs you to be tied to a job you hate because you're terrified of your debt. But once you realize that low interest debt is actually an asset in an inflationary environment, the fear disappears. You start to see your mortgage as a tool, not a burden. Here is a perspective you won't hear from the gurus who think every American lives in a perfectly safe bubble. We live in a litigious society. Millions of civil cases are filed in the United States every year. And if you are a homeowner with 100% equity, you have a target on your back. Imagine you're involved in a tragic car accident. You're liable. The other party's lawyer does a public record search. They see you own a $500,000 home with zero mortgage. That is a juicy asset they can go after to satisfy a judgment. Now, unless you live in a state like Texas or Florida with incredibly strong homestead exemptions that protect your primary residence from most creditors, you are vulnerable. In many other states, that equity is fair game. But what if you have an 80% mortgage? To a predator, that house is useless. The bank owns the first $400,000. After legal fees and the bank's cut, there's nothing left for a predator to take. In some states, equity exposure affects creditor risk. High equity can increase legal vulnerability. Asset protection rules vary significantly by state. You look poor on paper while your actual wealth is sitting in protected retirement accounts like 401ks or IRAs, which are much harder for creditors to touch under federal law. And let's talk about property taxes. Property ownership remains subject to taxes and local regulations. Ownership does not eliminate all external claims. Stop paying your property taxes in a state like New Jersey or Illinois and see how fast the government takes your house. You are just a tenant who paid a massive upfront fee to a permanent landlord. Why tie up all your liquid cash in an asset that the government can still seize? Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Some of you are thinking, but Tom, what if the stock market crashes? What if I keep the mortgage, invest the money, and the market drops 40% like it did in 2008? That is a valid, terrifying question, and it's the reason most people choose the safety of the house. But let's look at the data. If the market crashes 40% and you have your money in a diversified index fund, historically, broad markets have recovered over long horizons. Recovery timelines can span many years. Liquidity determines who survives long enough to benefit. But if the market crashes and you also lose your job, who is safer? The person with a paid-off house has zero cash. They can't eat their kitchen cabinets. They can't pay their property taxes with their roof shingles. They are at the mercy of the bank for a loan they won't get, or they have to sell the house in the worst possible market. But you, if you kept the money liquid, even if your account dropped from $200,000 to $120,000, you still have $120,000 in cash. That is years of mortgage payments. That is years of groceries. You have the burn rate to survive the storm until the market recovers. The risk isn't the market crashing. The risk is being illiquid when life happens. If you are worried about market volatility, you don't pay off the house. You simply adjust your investment strategy. You move some of that cash into virtually risk-free treasury bills or money market funds earning 4 to 5%. You build a fortress of liquidity that doesn't depend on the daily fluctuations of the S&P 500. I want to know in the comments, what scares you more? A stock market crash with $100,000 in the bank, or a job loss with a paid off house and $0 in the bank? Let's have a real debate about what safety actually looks like. We need to debunk the idea that a house is a safe investment. A house is a place to live. It is a liability that requires constant capital. The 1% rule suggests you should spend at least 1% of the home's value every year on maintenance. On a $500,000 home, that's $5,000 a year just to keep it from falling apart. That is a cost, not a return. When you pay off your mortgage, you often fall into the trophy trap. You see that extra $2,000 a month in your checking account and you feel like you've made it. Suddenly, you need a new luxury SUV, you need a high-end remodel. This is lifestyle creep because the money is no longer forced into a mortgage payment. It leaks out into consumer goods that lose value. I've seen countless people pay off their homes only to be broke 5 years later because they inflated their lifestyle to match their new cash flow. True financial independence isn't the absence of a mortgage, it is the presence of choice. When you pay off your house, you lose choices. You are committed to a single illiquid asset in one specific zip code. What if a factory opens up down the street and your property value drops? If your wealth is in the house, you're stuck. If your wealth is in a brokerage account, you can sell the house, take the loss, and move anywhere in the world. Liquidity is the ultimate insurance policy. It protects you against job loss, market crashes, and even your own bad decisions. Equity is a rock. Liquidity is a river. Which one do you want when the world catches fire? So, what is the professional alternative? How do you get the psychological safety of a paid off house without the mathematical tragedy? It's called the synthetic payoff. Step 1. For many low rate mortgages, extra prepayments deserve reevaluation. Liquidity constraints should be part of that decision. Step 2. Redirect that exact same amount of money into a dedicated brokerage account. Label it the house fund. Step 3. Invest that money based on your risk tolerance. If you're conservative, use a mix of high yield savings and total market index funds. Step 4, you wait. In 10 or 15 years, there will come a day when the balance in that brokerage account is equal to the remaining balance on your mortgage. At that moment, you are effectively debt-free. You have the choice. You could write a check and kill the mortgage that afternoon. But you won't want to, because your house fund is generating more wealth every year than your mortgage is costing you. You have all the psychological benefits of knowing you could pay off the house with all the financial benefits of actually having the money in your control. If a true recession hits, the person with the paid off house is sitting there with no cash. If they can't pay their taxes, they lose the house. But you have a house fund with $200,000 in it. You can pay your mortgage for a decade without a job. You can pivot your life. Who is actually safer, the person with the deed or the person with the cash? The bank wants you to pay off your mortgage because it reduces their risk. They want your equity to be the cushion if the market crashes. Don't be the bank's cushion, be your own fortress. We are at the end of this deep dive, but it's just the beginning of your shift in mindset. The American dream has been sold to us as a series of purchases: buy the house, buy the peace of mind. But real freedom isn't something you can buy from a bank or a TV guru. It's something you calculate. Stop trying to impress your neighbors with your paid off status. They don't care about your mortgage. They're too busy worrying about their own. Impress yourself with your liquid net worth. Impress yourself with your ability to weather any storm because you have a fortress of liquidity. If your mortgage rate starts with a 3 or a 4, you have been given a financial gift that may never come again. Do not throw it away because of an emotional slogan from the 1980s. We need to stop shaming people for having good debt. A mortgage is not a burden. It is a 30-year put option on the value of the dollar. It is the most powerful wealth-building tool available to the average person. If this video made you angry, good. Anger is often the first step toward breaking a lifelong delusion. If it made you feel relieved, even better. It means you finally have permission to stop struggling against the math and start letting the math work for you. I'm Tom, and I'm here to make sure you stop making emotional mistakes with your money. The world is changing, the economy is volatile, and the old rules are dead. Before you click away, I have a challenge for you. Go into the comments and write one sentence: I choose liquidity over equity. Or if you disagree, tell me why. Show me the math that proves a 3% savings is better than a 7% net gain. I'll be there and I'll be reading every single response. Subscribe if you want the truth about wealth, not the fairy tale. I'll see you in the next one. Let's build something real.